Schedule 1 is a business simulation game where you start with almost nothing and slowly building an empire. You create forbidden protein powder using completely normal ingredients like gasoline, medicine, and apparently something taken from horses that I am not going to pronounce out loud. Find customers, make sales, hire dealers, purchase properties, and eventually automate the entire operation. But I want to know whether it is possible to make $10 million while using only the RV. There is a mod that allows me to repair it and use it as a property again. In this video I listed 5 different strategies to make this business earn $10 million. And it all starts by arriving to the town of Hyland Point. When I arrived in Hyland Point, I had the confidence of a millionaire, but with the dead drops of cash my uncle had left for me, I had the financial resources of a moderately successful lemonade stand. As I was heading back to my RV, the Benzies cartel gave me the traditional Hyland Point welcome package. This was a major problem because my entire goal was to make $10 million using only the RV. So I visited the local mechanic and asked him to repair it. Unfortunately, the repair cost far more than I could afford, and even if I had somehow paid for it right then, my pockets would have been so empty that spiders would have started building webs inside them. Since I was temporarily homeless, I rented a motel room for a few nights because it was the cheapest property available. $25 is not that bad. The next morning, I visited one of the recycling stations and discovered that it pays money in exchange for trash. And luckily for me, Hyland Point had no shortage of that. But I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life collecting bottles from the side of the road. At that rate, I would have become the town's greatest environmentalist long before becoming a millionaire. So I also began selling products, hoping to build a loyal customer base and earn as much money as possible before moving the operation into the RV. I purchased a few useful assets that would make the future RV business easier, but then I got slightly carried away. Instead of saving every dollar, I decided to expand the temporary operation. That led me to Mizing, who offered to rent me a larger room for $800. For some reason, the game also allowed me to beat her up, take the money back, and continue renting the room as though absolutely nothing had happened. Mizing was either extremely forgiving or Hyland Point had no functioning justice system. Over the next few days, I gained more customers, improved the business, and finally saved enough money to repair the RV. Can you repair my RV? I can do that. It's going to cost about $3,500 and take about a day. During that time, I also upgraded my products from nice plants to beautiful crystals. That should have made the RV much more profitable. I had reached $1,000 in net profit, but as I was about to discover, even the crystals were not enough. 10 million divided by 5,300 comes to roughly 1887 in-game days. And if one day in Schedule 1 lasts around 22 minutes, I would need approximately 692 real-life hours to reach my goal. That is almost 29 full days of non-stop gameplay. So unless I wanted to spend the next month selling crystals without sleeping, eating, or seeing sunlight, I needed a second source of income. And that is when I turned to Casinos are designed to make you forget about everything outside them. There are no clocks, no windows, and no obvious signs that time is passing. The lights remain dim, the drinks keep coming, and the constant bells make it sound as though somebody is always winning. Even the vents pump extra oxygen into the building to keep gamblers awake. Whether that is true or not, casinos have one clear objective: keep you inside long enough to take all your money. But today, I am going to see whether I can beat their system or become exactly the kind of customer they designed it for. A few days pass and I finally reached $10,000 in net profit. Unfortunately, the casino doesn't open until 4 p.m. and I did not want to waste half of the day waiting outside. So I used a completely legitimate and highly professional method to enter early. All I needed was a skateboard and a small trick that confused the game into opening the locked door. And just like that, I was inside the casino before opening time. With every slot machine ready for me to use, I walked in carrying $13,500. During the first few hours, the casino slowly drained almost 30% of everything I had brought with me. More than $4,000 was already gone. Every spin felt like another small piece of the $10 million dream disappearing into one of these shiny machines. At first, I told myself I was just getting unlucky. Then I told myself the next spin would fix everything. And after losing again, I realized I was repeating the exact thoughts casinos are designed to create. My dream of becoming a millionaire was slowly fading away, one button press at a time. I wasn't even feeling angry anymore. I was beginning to accept that maybe this was not a money-making strategy. Maybe this was just a very expensive lesson. With only $7,700 left, I was ready to give up. I placed what I believe would be one of my final bets, watched the machine spin, and expected to lose again. But then... oh my god! Finally!
No way! We're 10,010 G's!
In a single moment, the same machine that had been destroying my hopes suddenly brought the entire challenge back to life. I had gone from preparing to leave the casino in defeat to believing I had finally found the fastest way to reach the $10 million. But as I continued gambling my way up, I ran into a problem I never expected to catch up with. Another 1,000, another 10,000, another 2,500? You scared me. Oh my god. His name was Keith. Keith suddenly walked up to me inside the casino, asking for crystals. At the time I didn't realize it, but this was the beginning of a much bigger problem that I would eventually have to face. Keith was usually one of the friendlier people in Hyland Point, but seeing him desperately track me down just to ask for more made me look at the business a little differently. For the first time, I started wondering what I was actually doing to the people of Hyland Point. Was $10 million really worth building an empire around people constantly coming back for more? Knowing that behind every transaction there could be families being affected and a next generation quietly shaped by the consequences of it all. Unfortunately for Keith, I had nothing on me, so I told him to wait while I finished gambling, knowing I wouldn't be able to get him anything until much later that night. And he actually waited. Every time I looked over, he was still there, watching me, waiting, and getting increasingly frustrated. Meanwhile, I was sitting only a few feet away, gambling my way toward $10 million using the same money I had made from customers like him. The whole situation started feeling extremely uncomfortable. I didn't even know how he had found me in the casino. And the longer he stood there, the more I wondered how patient he was actually going to be. Eventually, he was creeping me out enough that I decided to confront him and ask him to leave. I had no idea how he was going to respond, but surprisingly,
get out of here.
He just accepted it and walked away.
You're
No
annoying.
fight, no argument,
So
nothing.
impatient.
Which somehow made the entire interaction even stranger. With Keith finally gone, I went back to gambling, and by the end of the day, I had reached my next goal, $50,000.
That's it. I'm done. Time to sell.
I left the casino, took care of my customers, prepared another batch back at the RV, and went to sleep. At this point, I thought I had finally found a reliable second source of income. If I could make an extra $50,000 every day from the casino, reaching $1 million would take around 17 days. That sounded manageable. But $10 million? That would still take roughly 173 days. And there was no way I was spending almost half an in-game year sitting in front of the same slot machines. So once again, I needed another way to speed things up, and that's when I had to As you just saw, my primary income was still way too low. The biggest problem was that I could not simply keep expanding. Most of the remaining customers in Hyland Point were already under the control of the Benzes family, and if I wanted access to the rest of the town, I had to deal with them first. Eventually, I met their boss, Thomas Benzes. At first, Thomas offered me the easy way out. Instead of competing with his family, I could work for them. They would tell me what they wanted, I would make it, and they would pay me for it. Honestly, that sounded perfect. I could avoid the war, make some extra money, and continue growing the RV business at the same time. So I accepted. After a while, I received my first order through a text. I made exactly what they asked for, packed everything up, and headed to the Benzes mansion to complete the deal. This was supposed to be my first big partnership. Instead, they paid me an embarrassingly small amount compared with the quantity
Oh, where is the rest of them?
and quality of everything I had just brought them. I stood there looking at the money, and honestly, I felt like I had just been treated like a dog. They made me feel like some homeless guy begging in front of a king. But then I started thinking, if I was really beneath them, why did the king need my products in the first place? That was when the deal stopped feeling like an opportunity, and it started feeling like an insult. I was so annoyed that I did not even want to complete a second order. So I texted Thomas and told him our deal was over.
You know what? Fuck you, Benzes.
From that moment on, there was no partnership. It was either going to be me or the Benzis family. The only problem was that I had absolutely no idea how many people they had, and I was alone. Not long after ending the deal, they started becoming a real threat. Their people began showing up around town, and suddenly, expanding my territory was not just about attracting new customers anymore. I had to defend what I already had. I neutralized the first assault the Benzis sent after me, only to realize that I was somehow the one wanted by the police. Of course. Apparently, the police has decided to join Team Benzis. I had no idea what I was thinking, but I used part of my casino money to buy a van and parked it directly in front of the police station entrance. The idea was simple. If the officers could not leave the station, they could not interfere with my war against the Benzis family, and it actually worked. Every day, the police would pile up behind the van while I continued taking over the town. The van had officially become the most effective member of my organization. I started fighting back in the only mature and professional way I could think of. I started leaving messages for them all over Hyland Point, on walls, on buildings, anywhere they would see them. And naturally, I made sure Thomas's mom received a few personal messages as well. This was no longer business. This was extremely childish psychological warfare.
I expected a crown, but now it looks like a foot.
And apparently, it worked. Because one day, the Benzis family sent several men to deal with me. Luckily for me, I was already carrying a weapon. They attacked first, and I managed to defend myself and get away. But winning one fight did not solve the real problem. I had no idea how many more people Thomas could send after me. So instead of waiting for them to come to me, I started taking their territory, one area at a time. Every new section I claimed gave me access to customers that had previously belonged to the Benzis family. More territory meant more customers meant more sales, and more sales meant the RV could finally start generating the kind of money I needed. Day by day, their influence became smaller and mine became bigger. Customers who once bought from the Benzis family started switching to my products. The balance of power in Hyland Point was slowly changing, and for the first time, I was not just running a tiny business from an RV. I was taking over the town. As time passed, I realized the Benzis family did not want peace, and they were never going to accept defeat. So I decided to take advantage of the new customers I had gained throughout Hyland Point. I started asking them for favors in exchange for money and products. One of them managed to get me access to explosives, another dug a tunnel beneath the Benzis mansion, giving me a way into their basement. Once both deals were complete, I took the explosive and asked a close friend to turn them into a timed charge. And one night, it was finally time to put an end to all of this. I climbed into the tunnel, made my way underneath the mansion, and placed a charge. As the timer began counting down, I could hardly believe this entire conflict was finally coming to an end. The Benzis had controlled huge parts of the town. They had sent people after me. They had blocked me from reaching new customers. And most importantly, they were the reason this challenge started with a destroyed RV in the first place. The seconds kept ticking. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just like that, the Benzis family was gone once and for all. The same people who had blown up my RV in broad daylight were now watching their own empire disappear in flames. And honestly, I could not think of a more fitting ending. If I had been inside my RV when they destroyed it at the beginning, this challenge would have ended before it even started. Instead, I was still there. The Benzis were gone. The rest of Hyland Point was finally open to me, and for the first time, nothing stood between the RV and the rest of the city. Now that the competition was gone, it was time to enter a golden era. With the Benzis family out of the picture, my primary daily income jumped from around $5,700 to almost $53,000. That is almost 10 times more than what I was making before. And once I added the roughly $50,000 I could make from the casino, I was now earning close to $100,000 every single day. At that rate, reaching $1 million would take around 10 days, and reaching 10 million would take around 100 days, which sounds pretty good, until you realize that it is still roughly 36 hours of real life gameplay. honestly. But compared with where I started, this was a massive improvement. At the beginning of the challenge, my original setup would have taken around 1,887 in-game days to reach $10 million. Now, I had cut that down to around 100, but 100 days was still way too long. So once again, I started looking for another way to increase my daily income, and that is when I found something interesting. People had recently discovered a method involving gold bars, and obviously I had to test it myself. I would buy 2 gold bars from the old man, Mr. Blue Ball, then take them over to Mick's pawn shop and try to sell them for slightly more than what I paid. Unfortunately, Mick was extremely stubborn about the price. He wanted to buy the gold bars for almost half of what I had originally paid, and no matter how much I tried to haggle with him, he was not moving. So instead of taking the loss, I decided to hold onto the bars and come back another day. The next day, I tried again, and this time, Mick was feeling unusually generous. I managed to sell the gold for about $10,000 more than I had paid. So technically, the method worked. But there was one major problem. This was not something I could rely on every day. As I progressed further into the game, Mick was less and less generous with his offers. And eventually, no matter what day I came back or how much I tried to negotiate, he simply was not going to give me that kind of profit again. So the gold bar method was useful a few times, but it was not a reliable source of income, and definitely not something that was going to carry me all the way to $10 million. Reaching 10 million in around 100 in-game days wasn't so bad already. Technically, I could just spend those 100 days repeating the same routine until I reached the goal, but there was absolutely no chance I was going to do that. So instead, I decided to Before we move on to the final chapter, I'm still trying to figure out what kinds of videos you guys actually want to see. So if you've made it this far and you're still enjoying the video, let me know in the comments.
And hit that damn subscribe button.
Before I lose another 40 grand at the casino. Also, tell me what games you want to see next, because I'm probably gonna dive into Minecraft after this. Alright, back to the last chapter. So far, I had tried almost everything Hyland Point had to offer, and technically, I already had the answer I came looking for. Could I make $10 million using only the RV? Yes, but if I relied on the RV alone, it would take roughly 72 hours of gameplay. Adding the casino made things much faster, but even after taking over the rest of Hyland Point, reaching 10 million would still require around 100 in-game days, and I was not doing that, so I started wondering, what if the problem was not the casino? What if the problem was how little I was allowed to bet? For the second time, I returned to the casino with $700,000 cash, except this time, I installed a new mod. Normally, the game limits how much money I can put into a single spin, so I increased the maximum bet to $10,000. My plan was to take the money I had already earned and turn it into 10 million. How difficult could that possibly be? Let's go. Very difficult apparently. I started betting $10,000 at a time and almost immediately began losing. Before long, the $700,000 I had brought into the casino had collapsed to just $64,000. Months of work, territory expansion, customers, production, all disappearing into a slot machine in a matter of minutes. I had two options. I could restart the day and pretend this never happened, or accept the loss and spend the next several in-game days rebuilding everything. Neither sounded particularly enjoyable, and just as I was beginning to accept that I had completely ruined the final chapter, the machine stopped. I was losing hope. I thought I was supposed to load the game again. $1 million. I had hit the jackpot again. One spin had completely reversed the situation one more time. Minutes earlier, I was preparing to leave the casino with almost nothing. Now I had more money than when I walked in. And that win changed everything. Because suddenly, $10 million did not feel impossible anymore. If one jackpot could give me $1 million, I only needed the casino to make the same terrible mistake a few more times. So I kept going. The balance passed 1 million, then 2, and strangely, once I crossed $2 million, it almost felt like the casino had switched sides. The jackpot started coming more frequently. My losses became smaller compared with my total balance, and every few minutes, the number jumped again. For most of this challenge, I had been fighting for every $1,000. Now millions were appearing in front of me, and eventually, after starting with a destroyed RV, building a tiny business, losing money at the casino, taking on the Benzis family, expanding across Hyland Point, I finally reached $10 million. It's over! I had done it. I had turned one destroyed RV into a $10 million empire. But something strange happened after I reached 10 million. I thought seeing that number would finally feel like enough. Instead, it made me want more. I started producing more products. I bought more properties. I hired more employees. And before long, the small RV business I had started with had turned into exactly the kind of empire I originally wanted to defeat. By the end of the challenge, I was no longer some guy living out of an RV. I controlled some customers across Hyland Point. I had people working for me. I had properties all over the city. And the Benzis family, the people who once controlled everything, were gone. Which meant, whether I like it or not, I had taken their place. And that made me think about Keith. Earlier when he followed me into the casino asking for more crystals, I started wondering whether the money was really worth what I was doing to the people living here. Because by this point, I was not just responding to demand anymore. I was building an empire around it. And maybe the easiest excuse would be to say, if I didn't do it, the Benzis would. And if it wasn't the Benzis, someone else probably would. But that does not completely answer the question, because the people of Hyland Point are still the ones living with the consequences, while I am the one counting the money. So was I taking advantage of the people, or was I simply giving them something they were already choosing to buy? Was I responsible for what happened to Hyland Point, or were they? I honestly don't think the game gives you an easy answer, so I'll leave that one to you. There is one thing I do know though. I spent this entire challenge trying to defeat the Benzis family, and in the end, I became them. They control the city, now I do. They had enemies waiting for an opportunity to replace them, and now, so do I. Eventually someone else is going to arrive in Hyland Point with the same ambition I had at the beginning. They are going to want my customers, my properties, my money, and when that happens, I will be standing exactly where Thomas Benzis once stood, trying to hold onto an empire that somebody younger, hungrier, and probably much more unhinged wants to take away from me. Maybe that is the real Schedule 1. You start with nothing, you fight your way to the top, and eventually you become the same person somebody else has to take down. Well, we finally did it. If you somehow made it all the way to the end of this video, seriously, thank you so much. I'm still learning what works and what doesn't with these videos, so I genuinely want to know what you thought. If there was something you liked, please tell me. If there was something you hated, tell me that too. Talk trash if you have to. I can take it. Your feedback genuinely helps me figure out how to make the next video better. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.